Yo, what is going on, guys? It's Acidic back, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk to you guys about Anthem, where it stands in my eyes right now, and maybe ways that they could possibly fix the game in the future, because I think if they keep going down this path that they're in now, the game is going to heavily lose its player base, and it may not recover. The Anthem has had a slew of problems if it's not disconnects from the server, crashes of the game, loot problems, tons of things in the game that have just ruined it for a lot of people, and they haven't looked back on it since. They have fixed some of these things, such as load screens and things like that, but at the end of the day, it is still a mess to people, and honestly, I can see why, because it is, in all honesty. There's some things that still need to be fixed, and my main thing I think right now is loot. The loot system with the game as it stands is really just not forgiving in any way. They need to either make it to where the drops are a lot more, because for what you get, half the drops aren't even worth it because they have stupid inscriptions on them like plus melee damage on a shotgun, and those don't even go together. It should be increased shotgun damage or just increased damage in general. So they either need to make the loot drops more frequent or fix the inscription problem, which they said they did, but obviously haven't, because there's still drops happening with bad inscriptions on them. So what they really need to do is just make it to where the drops are really rare, like they are, fix the inscriptions, and make sure each one has really high stats, because that way it would feel rewarding to get it, even if it took that long to get to it. I think that's the best way to do it. Or you could go the Borderlands route with just a ton of loot, and some would be sucky, some would be good. You kind of pick which one you like. I like the one where it's more rewarding, but it takes a little bit longer, because it reminds me of like exotics. Like every time you got a Destiny exotic, it was always worth it. But I know some people might just want more loot, so if that's the way they want to go, they can go that way, but something in the loot table has to change. Another thing is just stability problems. I know it's had plenty of updates, and mine's somewhat kind of stabilized, but you can still get some kind of FPS drops here and there, some stutters, the highly frequent disconnects from the server or crashes of the game. PS4 has been reported to be getting bricked. Well, not technically bricked. I mean, you have to go and rebuild the database in safe mode, but some people don't even know what that is, so for them it's bricked. There's just, Anthem is having some problems right now with stability and everything, and it's one of the biggest things that the game really has to get, because if the game doesn't work and you're constantly getting disconnected, and then you're constantly having to load back in, so you're in a constant loop of load screens, which isn't the funnest thing to look at when it's the same picture of an Interceptor or a Colossus or a Ranger every single time, with the same quotes every time, and it's not an interesting background to at least kind of take your mind off the fact you're in a load screen. It really just gets repetitive and bland and boring to you pretty fast. I'm even kind of in that boat at the moment, because I still get disconnects from the server all the time. I don't have game crashes like client crashes much any, but I do get disconnected from their server, especially when I'm doing like expeditions on a stronghold on Grandmaster 1 or 2, and it really just ruins it when you're in that. You're really invested in what you're doing with that time, that battle, that objective of what you're trying to do, really trying to get to the end of that, get your loot that you want, and then you just get disconnected. Then you're loading, and then you might get disconnected again while loading, then you have to load again. So I think that's really one thing they need to get down, is just really focus on stability. If the game works, that's kind of the biggest thing. You can't have the game constantly just breaking on you, because then nobody wants to play it because they can't. The loot is sure it's a problem, but some people can look over it, like I have, and they still play it because it's an enjoyable game. The movement's fine, the gunplay's great. I love the combo system, and hearing the ding of you and somebody collaborating and making combos. That fundamental part of the game, the gameplay itself, is flawlessly great. I love the way they did it. I think it moves great. I think it does all that stuff, all the abilities and everything. The way the guns are. Some of the guns have really good perks on them, but then the inscriptions suck, which makes them kind of less useful. I think everything looks great. I think gameplay-wise, there's nothing they really need to fix too much. It's more or less mechanics. Another thing, which I know they said they're adding, would be like cosmetics to Grandmasters and stuff. They already said they are doing this, but I think it needed to be something at start because everyone is either the same default, the one outfit you get from the store, which no one has really bought, and then Legion of Dawn Edition gear. And then everyone kind of looks the same. You don't have that power fantasy or that feeling of uniqueness to your javelin, so it really doesn't feel like you're working towards anything. Something like Destiny, your armors are different. You can put different shaders. You can really just make your character you. And that's one thing people like, is they want to customize their character to be what they want, to really show themselves off. And with Anthem at the moment, everyone's the same model with just different color schemes, but yet people still use the same color schemes. You'll see a lot of blacks and whites and reds. You might see a few other abstract colors, but most of it's going to be black and whites and reds, and maybe some blues. That's about it. That's the only colors people use. So everyone ends up looking the same, and you don't feel special, even though you've grinded tons of these hours to get to almost like 475 power. But everybody still looks the same. Everybody acts the same. So I think they really need to focus a lot of time on making you feel unique with your gear and things. And honestly, the last thing that they really need to keep a good interest in just watching is content and ways to make more people experience different content. Like, in context, we have 3 strongholds in free play for in-game. In reality, we have 1 stronghold, and you could count free play if you want to, but it's kind of not consistent, as I did like 2 hours of Grandmaster 2 grinding with like 6 or 7 world events, and I didn't get a single masterwork. And this is Grandmaster 2, which is the second highest difficulty in the game. So the reason why we only have 1 stronghold is the loot amongst the 3 strongholds are all the same, and 2 of them are significantly harder / longer than the other ones. The Heart of Rage one, which is just the reskin story mission, takes forever because the boss has so many different phases, and it's just a long traveling time to get to him, especially on higher difficulties, with no real benefit to doing all that work and extra time when you could just do Tyrant Mind, which is a lot quicker and a lot easier to do because the boss can get melted a lot quicker without any sort of invulnerability or invincibility frame of moving to another arena. The other one, which is, I don't even know, I hadn't played it because there's no point. All I know it's like a tank with some shields. No one does that one either because it's just the hardest of the 3, and you don't get any extra benefit for it. So everyone just goes toward Tyrant Mind. They just put it on Grandmaster, and then everyone just farms that one. And if they really want the game to last, they need to make sure each activity is worth it in some way. Free play, I think they need to have a higher rate for these world events. I mean, sure, they're not the hardest thing, but I mean, Grandmaster 2, you should get Masterworks within 6 to 7 world events. I mean, it's 6 or 7 public events on the second highest difficulty in the game, and they want free play to be part of their in-game. Well, if nothing in-game related drops, it's not in-game. So they really need to put more loot drop into free play. The stronghold situation is a different story. They are guaranteed at the end of the stronghold boss to give you, depending on your difficulty, Grandmaster 1, 2, or 3, it'll be 1, 2, or 3 Masterworks at that final boss guaranteed. But like I said, there's no point in doing the harder ones when you could farm the easy one. So I think the main thing they really need to focus on there is just they need to have each stronghold just change up the code numbers and just add in a multiplier. Like they could just copy like the luck stat and just put it into the stronghold as a modifier, and then that way some of the harder ones are worth doing. A good example or analogy I'm going to try to make with this, say Destiny. If you've played it, and you probably have, if Nightfall Strikes or just regular strikes gave you the same loot and I mean the exact same loot, like the raid gear. If those strikes gave you raid gear instead as well as the raid, why would you do the raid over the strike? The strike is easier, quicker, and you can do it a lot more efficiently to get that gear, while the raid would take longer and you're still getting the same thing. So what I'm saying is they need to make it to where each activity is worth doing and there's an incentive to do it, so that you don't burn yourself out on the only one good thing that's available. And I know we're getting Cataclysms and Shaper Relics later, but that's also in May. And after that release in May, they really need to try to stay on top of at least every 2 months or even every month. They need to add in a different Cataclysm or different in-game activity that is worth doing to really keep people invested and wanting to immerse in those activities, so that they don't get bored out and just go off to something else. So yeah, that's been my opinions on Destiny. What's wrong, or not Destiny, Anthem, and what's wrong with it. What they could do to fix Anthem, and I just hope they do fix it, because I enjoy the game. I really enjoy the gameplay of shooting and like all the abilities and combos and stuff. Like I've said, the world's beautiful. It's graphically just stunning to look at. But if the main game, which is a looter, doesn't work, what's the point playing a looter shooter? But that's all I got to say on the matter. If you did enjoy, do hit that like button. I'll try to post more videos, so if you do want to see more videos from me like this, I'm going to try to do more of this format from now on. Do hit the subscribe button down below and hit the bell to be notified every time I upload a video. Also, I would like to hear what you think about Anthem. If you like it, if you dislike it, or do you even think it could come back from the problems that it's had in this first month of it being launched? Because there's been games that have done the same, where they've had terrible launches but they've redeemed themselves, and I think this one can too. But I'd like to hear your opinions on it as well. But as I said, it's been Acidic, and I am out till next time. Peace.